first of all, before we go any further, just if you can update us on how Oli is, because obviously there's been a lot of concern over how he is. I've seen the picture on his Instagram of him being in hospital. So can you give us an update as to where he is?
Yeah, suffered a couple of really deep gashes on his knee on Tuesday night, and obvious concern straight away. So he went off to local hospital and for them to quickly assess it, and there was some potential damage to the patella tendon as well as the cuts. So obviously then he went home to Sheffield with his parents, and then went down to London yesterday afternoon for another assessment and to get that cleaned out and to look at that. So yeah, you'll obviously seen the pictures on his social media with a brace on. So he's going to be ruled out for a period of time, weeks, not months. So obviously we wish him well in his recovery, and hopefully that can be as quick as possible. He's been such an influential player for us, both on and off the pitch. He's bought into everything about us as a football club, and his performances on the pitch have been of a really high level. So yeah, disappointing to see him in obvious pain as well as a young player in a game of that magnitude as well. But yeah, I'm sure it will be weeks.
I was going that though is the positive, if you can take any positive out of it, because I suppose when you see just how much treatment he needed, it must have been in your mind, this could be a really serious long-term injury for the lad, and thankfully it doesn't seem as that's the case. Yeah,
and obviously from the two guys who've gone to pitch, Greeny and Jeppo, that their initial assessments were, it looked, say from the cuts point of view, it was really deep, and you're seeing bone and tendon and whatever else, so not an easy sight for them, neither, and for all the people obviously have to stretch Oli off and say he goes to hospital, and there's always the danger because of the pitch and the conditions of the mud getting in the cut, etc. So it took some assessment. He then, as I say, went down to London to get that checked out again and underwent a thorough clean out. So thankfully that's the only damage, but obviously it was because of the size of the cut and the location of the cut, it has to heal in a certain way.
We've talked about the circumstances of his loan and such before, but I would guess now he'll go back to Sheffield for any kind of treatment that he needs now. But are you able to say how that might affect his loan at all? Because if it's weeks, then obviously that will take it into January when there's a recall clause.
Obviously all four players have got different recall dates within their agreement, and so Oli will go back to Sheffield United now for a couple of weeks because he can't do anything. He's got to keep that leg straight, certainly for a couple of weeks. So he'll go back into their hands, and we'll just keep our dialogue open with Sheffield United. Obviously it's their decision ultimately, what happens with Oli next and what do they want to do with him. But say all we can say from his time at our football club, he's bought into everything we've wanted him to do off the pitch, and his level of performance has been really good, and we have to almost use the loans of the players we've had as another vehicle to try and attract players of that level as well, because I think that they would all say they've been really well looked after off of the pitch, and they've come here and had game time of various levels, but we're trying to play the game in a certain manner which is beneficial to young players coming into come and learn and gain experience.
Has it kind of opened the door for you with how you've looked after those lads then, presumably from what you've said, to be able to access more of those Premier League type loans in the future because of the reputation you've built up now?
Well, I would think as a young player who's playing 23s football for the elite clubs in the country, they would be looking at the level of player of both Oliver and Alfie in particular, because obviously they've been fit for most of the time here, and looking at the amount of game time they've had first and foremost, because that's what young players need, is an opportunity to get game time. What they won't be aware of everything what goes off behind the scenes at our football club on a daily basis, and how we take care of the players in so many different ways, and I think that will only add, and we need to use that story to our advantage, so we can attract more Oli Arblasters, more Alfie Devines, more Josh Thomases, more Kofi Balmers to say that this is a really good place to come and learn on the job, and take that step up from 23s football, but also guaranteeing that when you're here you're going to be looked after. When your family comes to the game, they're going to be really looked after by Carol and the board, and so we have to use these two guys in particular to enhance what we're trying to do, because for a coaching team and how we're trying to play, I know that both guys have really enjoyed the time here. and so we have to use that now for the next transfer window and trying to attract similar players of similar quality.
Someone who's obviously your player, Nathan Smith, not been involved in the starting 11 the last couple of games. You gave him the captaincy in the summer as well. How big a call has that been to leave him out of the team? And also, if you can, how's he responded to that?
Well, it's always the most difficult part of the job, in my opinion, in my short time of doing this, is having that conversation with any player when you're leaving them out and trying to explain your reasons for doing that. And sometimes there's agreement and sometimes there isn't, obviously, but I have to make decisions based on what I'm seeing, and then I try and explain that reason and that decision to the player, look them in the eye and tell them what the truth is. Now, as I said to you right from the start, I'm always going to look at them and say, this is my honest opinion, this is where you're currently at, this is what you need to do to, one, get in the team or get back in the team, and these are the areas that I'm looking at for the reasons why you've come out of the team. So Nathan's reaction to that has been nothing that I didn't expect. As I said to you guys after the game on Saturday, he was his normal self pre and post game, trying to get his teammates ready and really encouraging and praising after the game. Now, he obviously won't like being in the team. I've told him the reasons why, and now he has to get back to the level of player that I know he's capable of being.
In some ways, has he been a victim of his versatility, because he can play at left centre back, but he's been more accustomed to playing in the middle. But when you, through fitness or form or whatever, you've had other players who can play in those positions. So playing on the left, was that kind of him being a victim of being versatile enough to play there, if you like?
I think he can fill all three of the positions at centre back, obviously, and he's probably not the only player in the squad who sometimes becomes a victim of their ability to play in one or two other positions as well. But when you've had the amount of injuries that we've had, you then have to show that versatility as well to go and fill in and put the team above yourself. And that's what all the players have done when they've had to play in multiple positions. So he has to keep looking at himself, keep trying to develop his own game, and get back to the level that I know he's capable of being.
The defending as a whole, though, over the last few games, I know you kind of solved one problem, didn't you, by scoring goals, but now that you've been a bit more open and you've conceded a few more. So what's been the thought process to try and shore that up over the last few games?
We've made individual errors for 2 of the 4 goals in the last 2 games. 100%. We've made errors, and we've certainly for the Wigan game, which they're the teams in our league, and we've given the teams an opportunity to come back into the game in terms of the scoreline. I still thought we had all the momentum against Wigan, even at 2-2. I thought we had the game under control, but you have to manage those moments. And when you had the dominance we had against Wigan, and when the game should have been outside of them as well, you've got to make sure that your concentration is bang on, and you don't give the opposition that glimmer of hope, which is what we've done. So we have to stop that, and each player who's available to play, certainly in those 3 centre-back positions, they have to be reliable, they have to be consistent, and they have to cut out basic errors.
Sometimes does it help when you've got a natural balance in there, like if you've got a left footer on the left and the right footer on the right and such? And I'm not alluding to the Nathan situation, but does that sometimes make it a little bit easier to get messages across and to get players to play their more natural game if they're on the right side? I
think certainly playing with a back 3, Phil, I would prefer to play with a left footer at left centre back for obvious reasons, for the balance, for so many things. But I haven't always had that choice, so you have to go in then, and you then almost have to simplify that passing style on that side of the pitch to a certain extent. But Nathan didn't come out of the team for that reason.
Away from all that, then Christmas obviously is always a busy period. Wycombe are the first ones up.
Yep.
They found it tough on their own patch, but again, I suppose it's the next game, like you've always said. But what do you think from their team that you may be able to exploit to carry on the run that you've been on?
Well, as you said, they've been on a difficult run. They changed formation last week for the first time for a while. They generally play 3 at the back. They played 4 at the back last week against Derby, and sat in a low block and made it difficult for Derby, and obviously then scored right at the end with a penalty. So they've got a lot of experienced players in their team who've played Championship and higher, some of them, So we're aware of what their strengths are, but it's more about us now building on the momentum that we built up in this last couple of games, and we've won games in different ways. At Exeter, we had to defend for long periods. That they dominate the ball that day, and then last Saturday, I thought, so in my opinion, it was the best performance of the season. With the ball, we were very good. We created numerous opportunities. We had numerous shots at goal. Their keeper had to play really well. They had to defend their box really well, and we were the deserved winner. So we have to build on that now. And I spoke to the players a week ago and saying that we've got 4 games now before the halfway stage, and where we're currently at, and where I would like us to be at that halfway stage.
Last thing then, Christmas, your first Christmas period as a manager. What for you are the big things to try and get right over this period? I know you've got things like balancing the squad and injuries and such, but what are you looking at as the kind of big priorities to get right in terms of the squad management and obviously points as well over the Christmas period?
Points. Yeah, we're obviously looking at points and say I spoke to players last week about where I would like us to be after 23 games, the minimum points that I'm looking at, and having played Wigan last week who were above us at the time, and Wycombe were above us, and then we obviously approached the 2 games at Christmas with Barnsley and Blackpool, so I think that'll give us a good barometer of where we're at. We'd obviously been on a difficult run, but we've won our last 2 games, and we have to build on that momentum and that belief that we've added to the group.